Sports Medicine. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Sports Medicine. I'm your host, Carlos de Los Angeles, NASM CPT, CES, CNC, VCS, weight loss specialist, and of course, .fit certified practitioner. And today, a very special guest on the show. He's been a mentor for me in the National Academy of Sports Medicine, and it's a great honor to have him on today. He is NASM Master Instructor, Prentiss Rhodes. Welcome.
And thank you, Carlos, for having me. It's an honor to be on.
My pleasure, Master. Okay. So today we're going to be discussing the kettlebell training. It's all about kettlebell training today. It's this instrument that a lot of people see these days in our gyms and fitness studios and virtually everywhere, but very few people know how to implement those tools, huh? So we got nobody better than Mr. Prentiss Rhodes to discuss the kettlebell training today.
All right. Well, I'm excited to get started, and my kettlebell journey, like maybe some of the people on this call, began maybe 15 years ago. That's when they were reintroduced into the country, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But they were reintroduced, and I went to my first seminar around that time, and I've been hooked.
Wow, awesome! I'm waiting to hear those stories. Okay, so for people out there who don't know what a kettlebell is, let's start by defining what is a kettlebell.
Well, in most settings, the kettlebell is a cast iron weight. It looks very simply like a cannonball with a handle on it. And the reason why that's good is it gives you some challenges to motion, the shape of it. Always, when you press and do things like swings, the gravity is always pointing downward, as opposed to being a dumbbell where the weights are the weight is evenly balanced. So that presents a lot of stability challenges. And with certain exercises, it can cause you to work just a little bit harder to overcome those challenges in stability. But it's a tool that's been around for hundreds of years.
A lot of people think it's a relatively new tool, but now we just getting to know through you that that's not the case.
Well, if you go back to some of the early Olympics, you see versions of the kettlebell in ancient Greece, and you'll forgive me, I don't remember the Greek name right now, but some of the athletes trained with very similar instruments. If you look at some of the writings from actually the Shaolin Temple, and we're going back to the, kind of around the within the first millennium there, they have a similar version that looked like a padlock. But if you look at the exercises, some of the diagrams that they made, a lot of the exercises that they prescribe are very much like the kettlebell snatch. So moving forward, in Europe, I think in Russia, the kettlebell was a tool called the gira. And in some cases, the farmers use this as a weight of measure, as a standard weight of measure, weighing the produce, their products at market.
On a scale?
As a scale, yes.
Wow.
As a scale. So
interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And the farmers started using this as a physical culture tool. And this was recognized by a scientist at the time, and the kettlebell was brought into physical culture. And in parallel, in Germany at that time, the Germans were using something very similar to the kettlebell for their physical fitness.
Maybe those strongman competitions, weightlifting?
Yes, absolutely, those strongman competitions.
But there's kettlebells that go up all the way up to 100 pounds. Actually.
More than that, actually.
Wow.
More than that. You can find kettlebells all the way up to 100 kilos.
Incredible.
And there are
that's strongman competition. That you're not going to find that in a commercial gym.
No, and there are athletes who can, if you search long enough on the internet, you see athletes who can use that quite capably.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable. Wow, that's a brief history of the kettlebell. Unbelievable. Now, comparing the kettlebells to dumbbells and barbells, let me hear it. Your opinion on that.
You know what? They're different. They have their unique purposes. I don't think, let's start with saying that one tool isn't really better than the other. It depends on your objective when you're in there for training. The kettlebell is really good for helping a user with unilateral, like arcing sort of movements. So when we do exercises like the single arm swing, and we do things like cleans and snatches, the shape of the bell and one's ability to rotate it, the big fancy word is curvilinear motion, but with the shape of the kettlebell allows one to do these movements a lot easier, whereas it's much tougher to do that with a dumbbell.
Traditional dumbbells, yeah.
A traditional dumbbell, but a traditional dumbbell is excellent for doing, I find I use that more than I would a kettlebell for some of my pressing exercise, like a chest press exercise, an incline chest press. Not to say that I couldn't use a kettlebell for that, but a dumbbell is better suited for those sorts of movements. And then you have the barbell. If you're really looking to do something with max strength.
The phase 4 of the OPT model, maybe?
Yeah, phase 4.
Maximal strength training.
Yeah, exactly. And then training up into phase 5 for the first, the strength part of that superset. Yeah, you definitely want to use a barbell. You can load on maximum weight for that.
Unbelievable. And the fact that the weight is placed downwards, as you just mentioned, and away from the hook of the kettlebell, how does this affect the technique and the posture during these explosive exercises? It helps, or it makes it more difficult?
The answer is a little bit of both. So when you're doing pressing exercises, let's take a dumbbell, for example, and you take that dumbbell and do an overhead press. Because of how the weights are positioned, it's a little bit easier to balance in your hand than it is with a kettlebell. But when you have that big ball and that weight moving, pushing down on you, it moves a little bit more. It moves a little bit more than a dumbbell.
So it challenges the stability more?
Slightly more. It challenges the stability.
Unbelievable. Awesome. Okay, now how do we implement a comprehensive kettlebell workout for our fellow health and fitness professionals out there with their clients, or for some of the fitness enthusiasts out there watching the show? If they want to do one of these all kettlebell training sessions, how do we implement a comprehensive, integral kettlebell training session?
Okay, so that always starts out with a goal, and I know that you're a fan of the OPT model as well. So using that as a template, it starts with the assessment. So I think kettlebells, and to a greater extent other exercises, get a little demonized because we tend to do too much, too fast, too soon. We see a cool exercise and say, I want to do that, instead of going through the assessment process.
Just because it's popular on YouTube. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong. It's just not.
Maybe it's not what that particular individual needs at that point in time.
Exactly. So let's take the swing, for example. The swing's a popular exercise.
Sure.
What one would do is you have to learn the regressions. This is something that's built up over a period of sessions. So starting out with that, if we think of the kettlebell in terms of phase 1, I would start my client with some form of a get up, which is something that I think that can have its own talk webinar, but I would start with some form of the get up so that this person learns how to position their body underneath the weight, and they learn how to get that shoulder stability before taking anything overhead.
Awesome.
Then when we talk about ballistic exercise or training the hinge patterns, I would want to see what their hinge pattern looks like. And I would start them with a deadlift before we even start swinging. Now, as far as loading, you load this very similar to what we would do in phase one.
Okay.
The acute variables with
12 to 20 repetitions.
With the deadlifts, yes, because of the get up, because it's very intense for new users, I would keep those repetitions shorter.
Okay.
I would maybe do those, if you're going to do those 20 total in a session, and I would regress those movements to their most regressed components. So we're only getting up to the elbow or something like that, but I wouldn't do more than 20 reps in a session with that. And then I would start with the deadlift, and then you can add some of your other body weight exercises around that, whether you want to do if we're talking about phase one, step up to balance, push-ups never hurt anybody, and learning, starting on some progressions of some sort of a pull-up, a vertical pull and a horizontal pull. And that's really all you do. Start with the deadlift, maybe 12 to 20 repetitions. And as it gets heavier, as the volume goes down, the intensity can go up, so that you're swinging something, or so that you're picking up something that's relatively challenging for you.
Excellent. Okay. Now, when we're using the kettlebells, it's really important, the safety, as with everything else. But since it's a tool not everybody knows how to use, some safety tips for people out there when using kettlebells.
That goes back to, first of all, get some qualified instruction. While it's very difficult to see the details when you're looking at a video. So even for 1 or 2 sessions, get someone who knows what they're doing, understands the skill before taking that on. And then the second thing, and this is a common problem, make sure that you have the mobility stability, things that we talk about in corrective exercise specialization, to get into these positions. So I see often sometimes people getting down to pick up the kettlebell to do a swing, and they have round back posture, their knees are caving in. So part of safety is making sure your body is prepared to do the work. And that's for any movement that you're going to be able to do. And then just simply don't progress
too quickly, maybe.
Yeah, don't progress too quickly. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Definitely not until you own that posture that's demanded for that exercise.
Very good. Now, talking, it goes with the safety too. Is there any specific population that should use the kettlebells, or is it everybody can use them?
Again, very good question. So with the population, just for full disclosure, I've had in my, when I did own a gym, I've had 80-year-olds swinging kettlebells.
Oh, man.
On the other side of that, there were 25-year-olds who I wouldn't let pick it up. So that really depends on the individual, their exercise history, and what their bodies are able to tolerate. But if you do suffer from some sort of orthopedic issue, you want to be sure that, or if you have some issues of where you don't have, competent bone, while the kettlebell can help that, you want to do that under the care of a physician. If you have cardiac issues, or something like that, where you have to, sometimes you do press something heavy, or you do heavy swings, and that does require very brief Valsalva maneuver, or just holding your breath briefly to get to a sticking point.
So people with hypertension may be contraindicated.
It may be.
Okay, maybe, or osteoporosis?
Osteoporosis, that's something that you can work with over time, but I wouldn't make that's something that a trainer, what you'd want to do is network with the doctor, with your healthcare professional, and try to explain what you want to accomplish with that person, and get approval first.
Excellent. Okay. because we've seen with the kettlebells, I saw one of the studies that you, Master, sent me over with how this yielded similar results in strength gains and power, and between people training with traditional barbells and with kettlebells, even increased VO2 max also. So definitely we can get similar benefits training with kettlebells as with traditional barbell strength training.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I think the study that you're referencing, the athletes increased their vertical jump by doing a sub-maximal power style deadlift. So that means all of the reps are explosive, using 30% of their 1 rep max in the deadlift. The athletes were able to achieve the same results with a weight that was around 3 or 10%. It was around 10% of their deadlift. And that goes back to the shape of the kettlebell. Because that weight is pointing down, you can create that extra force on your backswing. Now, I can't quote the study exactly, and I do have friends who've tested this on force plates, but when you do the backswing on a kettlebell swing, you can increase the G's significantly, so something that could mimic the same weight that you would have on a deadlift, and that's why it works. And I know in that study, they attributed some of that to being able to excite the motor units and swinging the bell using, the method is called overspeed eccentrics. You can create the same force as a deadlift.
Wow, impressive. So the rate of force production is increased also. Yeah. And motor synchronization, all of that, recruitment of motor units.
Yeah.
So this is just as beneficial.
Just as beneficial.
Because I saw in the study that between groups comparing, there wasn't much difference between the ones that train. So it could be just as beneficial. So for people to know out there, kettlebells could be just as good as your traditional barbells. Okay, now in your opinion, let's see, top 5 best kettlebell exercises.
Top 5. All right. This is tough. I'm going to get a lot of heat for this one.
No, let's say no particular order. Okay, let's make it simple. Yeah, let's just the 5 best.
Okay. My top 5, I would always start with the kettlebell swing.
Okay.
Because it has a lot of carryover to a lot of activities, picking things up from the ground. Also, if you think about, vertical jumping, doing your vertical jump, and it translates a lot to a lot of things one has to do from athletics.
Very good.
Within that same vein of a ballistic movement, doing those explosive movements, I would say kettlebell snatch.
Kettlebell snatch, okay.
Kettlebell snatch, just taking the bell all the way up overhead, because now you're having to do longer distance, and it presents another challenge to you. And that's one of the exercises that's used for that. I know you talked about increasing VO2. Dr. Kenneth J., one of the people in one of the authors of one of the studies that I sent you, did a lot of work with using the kettlebell to help one increase their VO2. So I had the kettlebell snatch up there as one of my favorites. The get up, applied responsibly.
That's the Turkish get up?
Yeah. I don't know if the Turks, I don't know if I can attribute it to the Turks. I know someone between Persian wrestling systems and Turkish systems, that exercise has a long history as well. So yeah.
Yeah, because you train jiu-jitsu also, martial arts, and I've trained wrestling, amateur wrestling, and we know when we're on the ground, you need a lot of core strength and stability of your whole body to stand up, off of the ground. If you got an opponent on top of you, flip over on top of him. That Turkish get up, definitely. It's going to strengthen the whole torso, the whole core musculature.
Yeah, absolutely. And you asked me earlier about different planes of movement. There's that aspect of transverse plane movement in there, rolling up to the elbow. Yeah, there's those rotational movements at a couple of opportunities within the get up that you can You can train transverse plane that you don't have
Yes.
the opportunity to do with many other exercises. So I
Yes,
like the get up,
That's true.
the clean and press,
Awesome.
the clean and press, and then additionally the clean and jerk.
Wow.
Two different exercises. And also, why do I like the clean and jerk? Because you get to lift a lot more weight with it. And also it's one of the events in kettlebell sport, because kettlebell is actually it's an international sport. And you can compete in it, and it's challenging. I've done it before, so that's one of my exercises. And the clean and press, it's because we're talking about being functional. You need to learn it's everybody's right to be able to pick things up and put them overhead. That translates into any skill. I know some of us are putting away Christmas decorations or have put away Christmas decorations. We have to pick those boxes up and put them up on a shelf, and the clean it. And in a lot of sports, you do that. If you think about wrestling, you think about doing an arm drag and doing a body lock and picking your opponent up.
Yes, sir.
Clean and press.
Yes, sir.
That's where that comes from. And that's why I like that movement.
That's amazing. Yeah, it translates to a lot of daily activities. So it's goes beyond just the training session per se in the gym. You know, it translates into our daily living also, which is really a cool benefit of it. I've heard that training with the kettlebells also, the intensity increases the EPOC, the excess post-exercise oxygen consumption.
Yeah.
So that's another benefit. Okay.
Yeah, you can if you load that properly. And if you plan the acute variables properly, doing the proper interval training, and you get your you can get your heart rate up during the session, there is that aspect of EPOC post session.
Excellent. Okay, now how to implement this is really interesting. How do we implement the kettlebell training into our OPT model at the National Academy of Sports Medicine?
All right, this is one of my favorite topics. So you treat this like any other tool, and you have to be a little more flexible and understand how to stick with the spirit of the model. Let's take the kettlebell swing, for example. So I can use the kettlebell as a deadlift like we described before, using the acute variables appropriate for phase one. But also in phase one, what are some of the things we can do? We can do reactive or plyometric training. That's the opportunity. If a client of mine can do this, I'll treat it like a phase one plyometric. So you'll teach them how to swing the kettlebell, and then we get back into that loaded position, that start position, hold for 3 to 5 seconds, and do another rep. So I use the swing very much like I would do a plyometric exercise.
Interesting.
If I wanted to do this in phase two, it's very much the same thing. I can start with a deadlift. Now that this person's gone through phase one, I can use a kettlebell for a slightly heavier deadlift, and then still go into that plyometric exercise, or that single rep swing exercise that I just described, and do that in phase two
in a superset manner.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it as a superset, absolutely. And then phase three,
hypertrophy.
Yeah, you can. So this is where I would bring in the clean and press.
Interesting.
So now that they know how to swing, they can swing the kettlebell. It's very easy now for me to teach a clean and press. And that's taking that kettlebell over several repetitions, maybe even up to 75, 80 repetitions in a session.
Wow.
To help them develop, using the kettlebell to develop hypertrophy.
Pretty good volume.
Yeah, it is. And phase five, I can do the same thing. This time I can use a heavy deadlift. And now that I'm confident that my client knows how to swing, I can go ahead and do fast repetitions with kettlebell swings or snatches, whatever you choose to do.
Yeah, because now you got the posture, the proper posture and stability of the whole body and postural control dynamically. And you know that you can put the client in that power phase with the proper technique and proper neuromuscular control also, and mobility, as you just mentioned.
Yes, absolutely.
Very good. Very good. So interesting. Okay, now we're just talking about power training. Kettlebells beyond power training. Everybody, thinks of the kettlebell for a lot of power training, a lot of repetitions, explosive movement, but kettlebells for balance training and kettlebell for core training.
Okay. So for core, you think about this from the aspect of corrective exercise. So if we take someone through the continuum, we do inhibition first. Now we want to get to lengthening. So there are some specific exercises. Go back to that get up. There's something way at the bottom that we practice in the kettlebell community called an arm bar, which helps with lengthening. A lot of us just being desk jockeys nowadays because we're sheltering at home. We have rounded shoulders. So that kettlebell arm bar exercise is a drill that can help us work on the external rotation of the shoulders. Excellent. So it works on lengthening these anterior trunk muscles, your pectorals. And also because of how we're holding the weight and due to the shape of the bell, that puts a challenge on the rotator cuff to stabilize that muscle. Yeah, to stabilize that joint. Exactly. And because of the positioning of the drill, we're doing other lengthening techniques to get into that posture.
That's isometric, right? So we're holding the position.
Holding it's without showing you. And if I can show some of these to your audience at a later time. But yeah, you are holding, the bell is isometric. You are moving underneath the bell to elicit the stretch. So think of it more as a PNF stretch.
Okay.
So think of it more as a PNF stretch. Then there are positions in the get up where we're both working on flexibility and core stability. Remember, sitting up to the elbow, working on that rotational strength. And there are different positions within the get up of where you're working on. With rotation, you're doing thoracic mobility.
Awesome.
You're working thoracic mobility and also that chest musculature flexibility. And having to move in the frontal plane now, you're working on that part of the core, just using one movement.
Very good. Very interesting.
Awesome. Yeah. Do your get-ups, break each part of the get-up down, and you'll find challenges to work on your flexibility, also your core strength. You're working on transverse plane, frontal plane movement. And if you're thinking about this in integration to maintain your posture, you're also working on those local deep core stabilizers.
Yeah. Awesome.
Having to stabilize your spine.
Love that. Okay. Unbelievable. Wow. It's been an amazing program, Master. Now, what is coming? Just let everybody know what are the plans, what is coming from the National Academy of Sports Medicine on this new year. We're going virtual with literally everything. The workshops we were just doing back in December, that was amazing. All these courses, free courses, the NASM is providing online these days. So let us know what's new, what's coming from NASM.
So I think you said it. Virtually, you're going to have a lot more contact with our master instructor team, and we're going to be offering you several more series. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too early, but we're going to offer more series. And we're going to keep it a surprise, but you'll get more of the same, a lot of access in the form of webinars and podcasts where you have that interaction and you have your questions answered. And we're going to talk about the hot fitness topics and talk about that through the lens of NASM and the OPT model. On my end, because I work with the corrective exercise specialist, the textbook is here. So
that's great news.
That is here. So if you prefer the textbook to reading something online, you can go ahead and get your copy of the new CES textbook.
It just came out?
It just came out.
Okay, I'm going to be ordering that right here today.
Yeah, it just came out.
I just did the CES online, but I love to have, the real textbook and, feel it.
Absolutely. And if you've used the old the course that was released last year, there's some new chapters, some new case studies for you to consume, and it's going to be great. I've already taken a look at it. Been looking at it through the whole process, but it is a really good textbook. You mentioned virtual workshops. We're going to be at least for this year, we're going to have our workshops back up and running. Virtual experience that's going to be fun for everyone who chooses to join us for that.
Amazing. You can count me in. You know already, Master.
All right. I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Yes, sir. Okay, now finally, last but not least, your contact information for everybody out there.
Okay, so my NASM contact information is Prentiss, Prentiss.Rhodes, RHODES @NASM.org. And if you want to reach me on Instagram, that's Dr. P. Rhodes. Doctor spelled out, P. Rhodes.
Awesome. Amazing. We got to do another show, Master. It's been a total pleasure and honor having you here on today.
And thank you for having me on. I was happy to do it. I look forward to doing something again in the future.
Sure, sure. Ladies and gentlemen, you know it. This has been Sports Medicine.